Welcome to Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I'm a board-certified music therapist, author, and expert on how to use music to relieve stress fast. This podcast is sponsored by McConnell Music Therapy Services, Inc., where they believe in the power of music to transform people and communities. Based in Northern California, their board-certified music therapists support people of all ages and abilities within hospitals, schools, corporations, and communities using music experience to connect, express, and de-stress. Visit them at mcconnellmts.com or their Facebook page, McConnell Music Therapy. This episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold is also sponsored by Dr. Nisi, trainer and certifier of master and executive coaches, because she believes every person, every relationship, every business, and your finances should be extraordinary. Find out more about Dr. Nisi Moore and the Life Coaching Institute at www.drnisi.com. That's DRNEECIE.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. It's so great to be with you, and I'm so glad you're here. Well, here we are at the end of one hell of a wild ride. Thanks, 2020. As you reflect back on the year, what are you grateful for? I actually have a lot to be grateful for. My highlight reel is really quite long for the year, to be honest, and I'm not going to rattle it off, but the reason it is because one thing I've trained myself to do is always find the good and focus on it. It's a daily spiritual practice for me, and I have a journal full of gratitude because every night before I go to bed, I write down at least 3 things that I'm grateful for from the day. By this coming Friday, that'll make a minimum of over 1,000 things I'm grateful for in 2020. Can you see how powerful that practice can be? I have a gratitude muscle that is in shape as a result of this practice, regardless of what's happening in the world. One thing I'm especially grateful for is all the amazing people I've met this year and the connections that have turned into collaborations and/or friendships. The person I learned this skill from is my longtime friend Joe Polish. We've been friends since 2003, and he's developed a platform called Genius Network during that time. That's a mastermind for industry transformers to come together, learn from each other, and support each other in health, business, and life. I interviewed Joe on my Stress Elimination Summit to ask him, why does having a network or community make such a difference? And the ensuing conversation is the result. My friends, it really does take a village. So sit back, relax, listen to a true genius of connection, and I'll see you on the other side. Joe Polish is the founder of Genius Network, one of the highest level groups in the world for entrepreneurs, and is considered one of the most influential connectors in the world. And after knowing him since 2003, I can personally attest that that is not hype. That really is the truth. There is no one I know who knows more people than Joe Polish. He's been featured in Inc. magazine, Fortune, Forbes, Success, and the U.S. News and World Report. He has also changed the lives of many others through his charitable causes, including the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Artists for Addicts, and Genius Recovery. Joe's mission with Genius Recovery is to change the global conversation of how people view and treat addicts with compassion instead of judgment, and to find the best forms of treatment that have efficacy and share those with the world. And I'm proud to say that my book, Sonic Recovery, all the proceeds of that book go to Genius Recovery. Joe, welcome to the summit.
Well, thank you. I'm trying to position myself here to make sure that the wall behind me looks, sort of appropriate. Can you hear me okay?
I can, and you do look like you are. I mean, I know you tried to be somewhere where it didn't look like you were in your prison cell, but yeah, it really does look like you are still in prison. So it didn't work out, unfortunately.
No, that's funny. That's funny. No, but yeah, so I'm in this little area of my house, which is actually kind of cool. But I open up the window over here, you can kind of see outside.
There we go. Oh yeah, that is very cool. All
Yeah.
right. So
Anyway,
you're not in prison, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Joe, it turns
yeah, at
out.
least I can see the outside, right? Um, so
So
let's talk about whatever will be most helpful. I'm sitting there thinking about you calling this a stress reduction summit, right?
right, or stress elimination summit, as if it's possible, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I can actually tell everyone what you need to do to increase stress, and then I can tell you about all of the ways that that I have attempted to eliminate it. But it's sort of I have this wonderful way of bringing, because look, I'm an addict. I'm an openly talk about my recovery, and addicts don't seek harmony; they seek chaos, right? And so there's a lot of scar tissue that has come with living a life that had many years filled with acting out behaviors, drugs, alcohol, sex, workaholism. I mean, you name it. All forms of obsession are a part of addiction. And I see a lot of these personal development, self-help people, many who are colleagues, and some are friends, some are former friends, and a lot of them are just interesting people. But they talk about obsession as if it's like, be obsessed with it, be obsessed with your parenting, be obsessed with your business, and there's that has to be taken in the right context, because a lot of obsession is just a disguised work for personal development people to say, like, it's okay to be an insane human. And so I'm saying this in all seriousness. I have a wonderful ability to claw my way into messes and then claw my way out. And most of my life has been spent clawing my way out of messes I've gotten myself into and clawing myself into opportunities I wanted. Now, at this stage of my life, I've gotten a lot better in the midst of a pandemic and coronavirus and all of the fighting and all of the horrible things that are happening in the world. There's a lot of magical, wonderful things that are coming out of this, depending on, to what degree you can access that. And it's been a really freaking tough time. I mean, this has been one of the most stressful times of my business career, because with all the work I do with addiction recovery, my already busy workload it seems like it's tripled. And I talk every day to people that are suicidal, going through opiate withdrawals, dealing with all kinds of depression, anxiety, and I'm an empath, so I take that on. So I want to be as useful and as valuable as I can be, but I wanted to set the stage. By no means do I want someone to think like, oh, yeah, this is like a guy who's totally peaceful and whatever, because I certainly have done a lot of work, and I think I can share some valuable things. And I'm a student just as much as I am hopefully wanting to share things too. And I've learned a lot from you too, Tim. I mean, you're one of the best people I know that, with what you do with music. I've never heard a more articulate person explaining the benefits of music for a flow state and the healing and stress reduction that does too. So yeah, so let's talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about.
Cool. Thanks. I appreciate that. And that's one of the things I love about you is that I'm sitting here in my garage, right? These are IKEA curtains. That's my crap right behind it, right? And like the first thing I do is I just tell people I'm in my garage and this is an IKEA curtain. Make no mistake, I'm not in some fancy, studio. There's no front stage, backstage. And I just was telling everybody before you got on the nature of me totally screwing up the timeline today and how happy I was with how everything was going. And then boom, it just dropped on its face. And I was like, I could pretend like I have my shit together,
Right.
or I could just let everyone in on the joke. Right. And I've really seen you model that. And you've given me over the years, like more and more inspiration and courage to share my mess along the way from stage, as I've watched you kind of lean into that vulnerability yourself over the years. Like there was a period of time where Joe and I wanted to do blog talk radio in 2010, and we wanted to talk about addiction, but we weren't talking about it publicly from stage. So my homework after we talked, ladies and gentlemen, was to look up voice concealing software. And we were going to have alter egos, and but we wanted to serve the addiction community, but we hadn't worked out our own baggage yet about serving publicly and honestly and vulnerably about our own mess. So we were going to like do it behind this like veiled curtain of like software. And of course we didn't do it because that was just too phony for us. But I think that's one of the things that endures about our friendship, is that we both rather just be, warts and all in front of everybody and not look, I do not have my shit together. It's better than it was, but by no means have I crossed the finish line. And I think that's one of the things that unites us. So we're going to talk today because I want people to understand this kind of hidden secret ingredient to any kind of change. But before we get there, because there's a very important contest with prizes on the line, what was your favorite concert?
Really, there's a lot, but I remember Oingo Boingo. There's a band called Oingo Boingo. Danny Elfman, many people would know Danny Elfman from all the movies that he's done more than anything else. Because look, I'm 52 years old.
Just
so when
dated yourself.
Yeah, and so when I was in high school, I mean, I went to a bazillion concerts. I mean, I've everything from just hardcore thrash metal to punk to I've seen Tori Amos a bunch of times. Tori Amos actually gave me a kiss after one of her concerts from something I said to her. I've seen Metallica a ton of times, bunch of cool bands. But I'll tell you, the Oingo Boingo concert really stands out for me because it was bizarre, and I was on LSD during the time, which I probably shouldn't even mention that, but that was during the period where I was really, almost a drug addict. I became a full-blown drug addict from freebasing cocaine, and things got really bad for a period of time. That was still in a stage though where I was just felt really free and felt open and that sort of stuff. And then life shortly thereafter began to suck bad. But that was an amazing concert. They were just a really good band.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. I remember seeing them. I think it's Rodney Dangerfield's Back to School. They're like the band in the dorm room playing the college party. And there's Danny Elfman, like bloop. And if you blink, you miss it. So
Oingo, let me say, you also, I saw you in Liquid Latex. Like I did actually see one of your shows, which was a total freak show. That made like Gwar and Marilyn Manson look a little tame.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment. Absolutely. It's because I appreciate you. Appreciate that shout out. That it was memorable. So listen, the self-help world, I feel, kind of sets people up for failure a lot of the times because, in and of itself, it promotes a lie, which is that all you need is yourself in order to beat anything. Mm-hmm. And you and I know that that's simply incomplete truth. Like, yes, you're there. There's things you need to do. But why is it that, since we're talking about stress, and we could be talking about anything, but why is it that people can't beat stress or beat anything alone?
Well, silent battles are the hardest battles to fight. You can try to beat them alone. You can isolate yourself, but just like addiction, depression, anxiety, loneliness, it's like a fungus. It literally thrives in darkness, right? And so if you could imagine things that grow in the dark, mold, mushrooms in some cases, they're the same thing with mental stress, mental disorders, addiction. And so, you've heard the saying many times, you're as sick as your secrets. And I used to believe addiction was a disease because I heard that for many years in 12-step groups, which I'm still a big believer in communities with 12 steps. 12 steps do a phenomenal job with that. And, there's a lot of, on geniusrecovery.org, I list every type of meeting, 12 steps and otherwise that, are available for free. And, there's many that are being done virtually right now because people can't go, to meetings physically. But, you need to have community. People that are isolated, if there's anything that I have tried to deepen in my life and every day is part of it for myself and my ability to help others, my clients for business and people in recovery for recovery is connection, because as Johan Hari says, the opposite of addiction is connection. And so when you are, when you're trying to battle it alone, you're using your brain and you're using your intellect, and the issues are in the tissues, and it's not just an intellectual exercise. I can speak more so to addiction recovery than depression and different things, although I've had many times where I've been depressed. I've had a lot of my life suicidal thoughts, and never attempted suicide, but I certainly contemplated it. So I've been in very dark places. I nearly killed myself with drugs. I mean, you know my story. In my worst state, I weighed 105 pounds from freebasing cocaine daily when I was 18 years old. Luckily, and through just, you know, a shitload of pain and also just being able to connect with people that, you know, kind of helped me out a lot. I'm still able to, you know, I do what I do now as a result of it. But, you know, right now we're in the middle or on the cusp of the greatest mental health crisis in human history. The aftershocks are going to be far worse than the quake. And I hope it doesn't, but I believe it's going to become a lot worse in terms of how, you know, how people are dealing with it, because everyone, no matter where they're at in their life, has been completely thrown out of their comfort zone because they're, you know, we're creatures of habit, and very few people have been affected. I talked to a few that are like, best thing that ever happened to me. Of course, they're not laid up in a hospital bed. They haven't lost a loved one. They have money. You know, people that do not, people that are raising children, people that are in marriages and relationships where they don't like each other and they're with each other all the time now. Divorces, spousal abuse, child abuse, animal neglect, addictions, vices of every kind, escapism, and it all comes down to pain. You know, like my friend, and you know Gabor Mate also. Gabor Mate is a dear friend of mine, and he says, you know, the opposite of addiction. That's Johan Hari, which those guys are good friends. Also, actually, it's funny because Johan wrote a whole chapter in, you know, Chasing the Scream about Gabor. But, you know, his whole thing is the question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. So I would equate that to almost anything. Why the anxiety, you know, well, what's the pain? You know, what's the pain that's causing that? What's the pain that's causing that depression? And so it's either connection or it's biochemical. You know, there's a book called Habits of a Happy Brain, talks about serotonin and dopamine. I mean, we are biochemical, you know, creatures, right? And if you feel like shit right now, you probably don't have, you know, feel good chemicals flowing through your brain in a certain way, which that's where nutrition and exercise and sunshine and sleep and meditation and breathing and somatic therapy and all of the different things that you and all of your guests are talking about in different ways, it affects your biochemistry. Then, so what throws your biochemistry off? Not doing those things, right? Having things out of balance, you know. So part of it is, you know, we live in a world where most things are not treating the root, they're treating the fruit, you know. And you look at anything, wars, racism, people freaking out, stressed out. I mean, what's the root problem, you know? And so when I think of like, what could I possibly say to everyone here? Well, it's different for where everyone's at in their life, right? And so my whole thing is people that are watching this, listening to this, I would say, you know, how do you solve one problem that solves 10 problems? It solves 20 problems. It solves 50 problems. Those are the things to solve. And how do you stop creating it in the first place? I mean, you know, for me, stress in my life, the question is not how do I eliminate it or reduce it? How do I stop it in the first place? And, you know, my buddy Hugh Downs, who just recently died at 99 years old, you know, people that are over the age of 40 probably know Hugh Downs. People under the age, who the hell are you talking about? This was one of the most famous people in the world in his day. I mean, he had the world record for time on broadcast television. He was all over TV. I did a tribute to him, Hugh Downs, on, you know, and I put up my interview that I did with him 12 years ago. And I interviewed him when he was 87 years old. And one of the things that he said is he's like, stress actually will make you better. You can't stress a muscle and expect it to, you cannot not stress a muscle and you know, expect it to you know, grow. So stress puts us in situations where we grow. He goes, so stress is, you know, a useful thing. He's like, distress is not where you want to be. And so certainly what, you know, it's semantics here, right? Because the fact is stress kills if you have too much of it. I mean, you can die from drinking too much water or you can die of thirst. I mean, there's deprivation and there's excess. And, you know, that's where things get freaked out. And addicts live in extremes. It's either binging or purging. So if you look at your life, What are you binging? What are you purging? What are you doing in excess? What are you neglecting yourself of? The internet and mobile devices and technology are amazing, unless you stare at screens, 15 hours a day, and then you wonder why you can't sleep, and you wonder why you're in fight or flight all the time, and you wonder why your body's filled with pains. You wonder why you're flipping out because of, the news and the consumption. So it's what you're consuming. So it's the trauma work, going to the pain. You get to the trauma work, and then of course the final thing is the environment, where how do you set up the environment that's conducive. My buddy Ben Hardy, I actually have his newest book, Personality.
I have it on my nightstand. I'm reading it right now.
Yeah, Personality is Permanent, and great book for people to read. And his last book was Willpower Doesn't Work, because a lot of people rely on willpower, but what he's found is that the environment has more to do with success in many cases than, how smart you think you are.
Yeah, there's another great book called Change Anything by Carrie Patterson and a series of other authors. And in that, they do a lot of research that Ben's also involved in, where they identify these 3 ingredients for change, which is 1, your thoughts and beliefs; 2, your environment, like the physical environment; but 3, the social interactions, like who you hang with. And where I think what you've done in your business world is so applicable on a social health, because you can look at it through a business health lens, but you can also look at it through a social health lens. With Genius Network, you've had so many entrepreneurs come into your community on the front end thinking they were there to improve their business. And then they come up to you and they say, I became a better human after being in this community. And that's not why I signed up, but it's why I keep signing up. And I want to talk about that because you've curated that community in a very conscious way. You've put up doors to that community. Like, not anyone, just anybody can write a check and walk in. Like, you curate something about that community. And I really want you to talk about how you've seen the role of community improve people's lives in ways that they didn't even expect.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I do is I try to sell people what they want and give them what they need. My job is to create what I consider the best environment and the best results for people. I focus on results. I believe that nobody wants to be on a summit. Nobody wants to listen to podcasts. Nobody wants to go to one of my conferences or join a mastermind group. What people want is they want a result. And in order to get a result, you need capabilities, and those capabilities are delivered through relationships. And so if I can connect people to people that are industry transformers, that are very smart and very capable, that have figured things out. And, my buddy Clay Hebert has this great line where he's told me, I don't know if he came up with it, but I heard it from him. I always give people credit wherever I hear things from.
Yes, you do.
Steal IP or steal people's ideas and try to make it their own. So whenever you see a bunch of influencers that are always quoting themselves and no one else, you got to know you're dealing with a narcissist in many cases. But anyway, so he says it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar, right? And so when you bring other people together and you nurture an environment of giving. I mean, one of my books, Life Gives to the Giver.
That's the one you've given away to our VIPers, in fact.
Yeah. Yep. joesfreebook.com. We actually set it up right now so people can get it. And it doesn't even put people into an upsell funnel. I'm just putting stuff out there right now to just be helpful, just like you're doing right here, right? And so part of it is setting the stage for people to give their, you will get more. It sounds counterintuitive, but when someone comes in with a taker energy versus a giver energy, they get a hell of a lot less out of it. When someone calls me up and says, not that they get me on the phone. If they know me, they can call me up. But if someone reaches out to me or my team, and right now I get between, it ranges, but somewhere 50 to 200 requests a day. Come in, be on interviews, read my book. Can you look at this? Can we do something together? And when someone leads with, we can make a lot of money together, and I don't even know them, or they've not said, hey, I've read one of your books. I've listened to one of your podcasts. I've done some, it's just the whole thing. I mean, you've immediately identified yourself as either A, ignorant and not really knowing how to do relationships very well, or because if anyone knows anything about me, my main thing is not, oh, let's make a lot of money. There's money to be made in many different things, but that's not the main criteria. And I say that not poo-pooing money. Money, people that say money isn't important, try living without it, right? Money's very important. However, there's other things that are important: alignment, value creation. Money earned ethically is a byproduct of value creation, which I've had many podcasts with Dan Sullivan about that topic. And so, but it is relationships, man. I mean, it's a connection network. And so the more that you can bring people together and connect with them, and I believe that questions are more important than answers. People are running around looking for answers. And, if you go to people that have knowledge and you ask them the right questions, or you put them together and you facilitate a group. Like I never try to make Genius Network about me. I don't want Genius Network to be known for Joe Polish. I want it to be known for the people that are in the group. As a matter of fact, I love the whole saying, don't be a sage from the stage, be a guide from the side. And so people constantly, every year, they'll come to one of my events and they'll say to, when's Joe going to speak? And I always open up the event, and obviously, I curate the whole thing. I MC the whole thing with other people like Joel Weldon and JP Sears and, people like that always come in. I bring them in to help, add all kinds of different perspectives. But I'm just a curator. I mean, I'm just trying to curate geniuses that have capabilities and knowledge. And my goal is to build a better entrepreneur. And my focus is on health, mental and physical, wealth, not only making money, but not losing it, and ELF, doing things that are easy, lucrative, and fun versus hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. So the criteria in my life is this person, is this project, and this thing ELF. Is it easy, lucrative, and fun? And if there's no money involved in it, is it easy, liberating, and fun? Does it expand me versus contract me? And so, one thing, if you go throughout the day, everyone listening here, does this person, like for instance, if for whatever reason, like someone doesn't resonate with me, they don't like my voice, they don't like my perspective, they don't like my opinions, whatever, I would say, don't spend any more time listening to me. Go find someone that you're aligned with. I mean, I only want to have relationships with people that want to have relationships with me. And whenever you try to force it, that's not fun. Now, granted, that's different than someone that's looking out for you. Your life is off the rails and they're literally trying to, call you out on your own shit, and your own ego doesn't allow them to be heard. That's a completely different perspective. It's really the intent and the caring, but a lot of it has to do with how the tone of voice, how someone approaches you, how, are they easy? I don't like people that are a pain in the ass, there's a Warren Buffett quote. I'm trying to think, the best thing about being rich is you only have to deal with people you like. There's wealth in ways that are way beyond money. I mean, there's a lot of people that have enormous money that have no, relationship freedom, that their health is completely shot. And there's this great line in recovery, Tim, this one, anything that you put ahead of your recovery, you're going to lose. Well, if you put anything ahead of any area of your life that's important, and you make that other thing that's less important, you say but it's getting all of your time and all of your energy, and the thing you say is important, like your family, your spiritual practice, your sobriety, your addiction recovery, anything you put ahead of that, you're going to lose your sobriety. You're going to lose your recovery. And a lot of people think of addiction recovery as getting sober. Well, sobriety, that's only stage one. I brought it out here. There's a book written in 1985 by Ernie Larson called Stage 2 Recovery. If you're in recovery, but you don't even know what recovery is, what does that mean? Does that mean quit drinking, quit doing drugs, quit watching porn, quit spending all day, watching Netflix, or, spending your life away gambling, or, eating for, pain relief? I mean, you can stop the behavior or the consumption, but what is the thing that caused that in the first place? Because those are all symptoms to a much deeper problem. And so those things are best figured out with connections and relationships. And so to go back to the thing you brought up, I sell people what they want, give them what they need. When they come to Genius Network, most of them want more money. better clients, become a New York Times bestselling author. And I have probably more people that are New York Times bestselling authors in Genius Network than maybe, I don't know, than most groups in the world. You know, and at the same time, who gives a shit, right? You know, like, okay, you know, if your life is all fucked up, doesn't matter how much, you know, how much fame you have. It's like, you know, how do you, is your life working? Is it not working? So my whole thing is build a better entrepreneur, help build a better entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think one of the things I appreciate about how you build a better entrepreneur is through community. And I know that for me, like the two examples I try to give people, one is CrossFit culture, two is 12-step culture, where in 12-step, you've got the steps. It's like there's a practice, right? But that you know, if you just took them on your own, could you get some results? Yeah, probably. Would you get all the results? No. You have accountability, because you have a sponsor, right? Someone who you vomit what's going on in your head, and then they say, are you open to feedback? And you say yes, and they go, you're fucking insane. You're, you know, like, that's totally insane thinking, and I need to feed that back to you. And you go, thank you, I didn't see that. That was my blind spot. And then you have community, which is your fellowship. And so, you know, I'm not in this alone. And I think that as a human being, since we're social animals, one of the existential, like, spiritual issues is, am I alone? Like, is it just me? Because it's just me in this meat suit. I feel like there's only one of me in here. Maybe this is it. And when we have that experience of feeling connected and being in relationship, that answers, that scratches that itch. Well, oh, I'm not alone. Okay. All right. Because today I have the questions, but tomorrow I have the answers. Someone else has the questions. And then the next day I got more questions, because every answer leads me to another question. And so being in this community of relationship, of exchanging the knowledge. I love your quote about capabilities are shared through relationships, like exchanging the knowledge back and forth. That's what the summit's been. Like, I've had every single summit speaker say something I hadn't heard. And 95% of them I share the stage with. And so even still, they, you know, coming in with a beginner's mindset, as you've taught me to always do at any event, has being in relationship just with this group this week. I have all this wonderful new knowledge, all this new capability that's available to me that's only been shared because we're in relationship at some level. So let me ask you this. The book, Life Gives to the Giver, that's a gift that you're giving everybody. Can you kind of give us a quick synopsis? Like, what's the, you know, what's it about? What's that? What is
Yeah, you know, it's about everything. It's about all my musings on wellness and marketing and addiction and health. And so I write 3 emails a week, and my friend Anna David, who me and her, we actually wrote, you know, The Miracle Morning for Addiction Recovery. We did that together with Hal Elrod. And Anna took a lot of my writings, because people love the 3-week emails that I put out, and she assembled them and organized them into this book. And it's it's all on things related to being an entrepreneur. The 2 people that I want to be a hero to, 2 groups of people I want to be a hero to, are people that are entrepreneurs and people that struggle with addictions. Because, you know, the entrepreneurs, they have to get up every day and produce a result. They don't live in the time and effort economy. They live in the results economy. And if you're not able to create a result in your life, you're not going to get paid, right? And it's a very scary and lonely space for a lot of people. And especially when things change in the world and you could instantly lose your business. And not only that, what if you have other people whose livelihoods depend on you? Like, you know, I have 14 full-time employees. I have a big payroll, that sort of stuff. And so it's really to help entrepreneurs and really get people to understand that life does give to the giver, that you will get what it is you want in life by producing more than you consume. There's that very interesting Zig Ziglar quote, which he's credited for, which is, you know, you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. Here's the caveat that my buddy Martin Howie told me, though. You can spend your life helping a lot of other people get what they want. They won't do a damn thing for you. So you have to be careful to know how to avoid takers, right? Because people that are genuinely caring, contributing givers become catnip. And I've been like catnip for narcissists. I mean, they just seek out and try to act charming. And I'll tell you, the more famous most people are, the faker they are. And there's certainly a lot of famous people. I mean, people are constantly asking me, how do you know all these people that I know? Because I know a lot of, I mean, if you
Yes.
know, I mean, you know all the damn people I know that does, just because someone's famous and has a big following doesn't mean they're authentic or give a shit about you. Like, some of these people are the most cleverly disguised narcissists on the planet. Like Dr. Ramani Durvasula, who's one of the world's leading narcissist experts, has become a dear friend of mine. I've done a deep dive. So become a giver, be an incredible giver. Life gives to the giver. You can get it for free at joesfreebook.com. People love it. I mean, it's a great book. And,
Awesome.
it's just there to help people. It's just help people with perspectives, help people with strategies. I'm very open about talking about my addiction, what's worked in my life, what doesn't work. And I believe on the pursuit of, and I write about this in the book, the pursuit of learning is incredibly valuable. You got a bunch of seekers, right? But unlearning is more important than learning. So if you're really stressed out right now, if your life isn't working really well, then think of the areas that, you have learned, because winners find ways to win and losers find ways to lose. And so if your life is not working in one way, you have developed the skills of having your, if you wake up every day and you yell at your kids, kick your dog, smoke a couple packs of cigarettes, eat 2 Egg McMuffins, and basically have a really grumpy, shitty attitude, you've developed really good habits of doing that if you do it consistently every day. So it's not about good habits or bad habits. It's about what works and what doesn't work, right? And so unlearning is way more valuable than learning. And that's a difficult thing, because a lot of this is dealing with subconscious stuff. It's on an unconscious level you might not even be aware of. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. And you have your next wonderful speaker that's going to be joining.
We got to move on. Listen, thank you as always, my friend, for sharing your wisdom with us. Your wisdom has improved my life directly, and then therefore, the wake that I leave behind me in my life, who I touch, and because we're all in relationship, I can always point back to Joe Polish. And so just thank you, sir. Love you.
You're welcome. Love you too. You guys have a wonderful day, and best to everybody.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold. I've got a couple of resources for you, which you can find in the show notes or you can listen to right here. So check it out. If you enjoy the sound of my voice and you enjoy the sound of my guitar, imagine them put together. Go to sonicrecovery.com and take your very own relaxation vacation, where I take you out of the stress of the present moment and back in time to a time when you felt happy, healthy, safe, and sober, and then walk you through that memory so you can bring back those feelings into the challenges you're facing today. So go check that out. It's at sonicrecovery.com. If you're a healthcare worker in recovery, check out the Music in Recovery Self-Care Guide for healthcare professionals that I created just for you. That's at hcp.sonicrecovery.com. And if you're a healthcare worker and you'd like more information about how to help your patients use music, you can check out the Music Medicine Guide that I created just for you at musicmedicineguide.com. Lastly, if you enjoyed the pod and you haven't done it yet, would you just take a minute to rate and review it? It really only takes about 60 seconds, believe it or not, and it would go a long way to help us make more people know just how good this pod is, particularly for healthcare workers and their stress. Thanks again. See you next time.